Welcome everybody today. I'm here with Taryn Voget and she's from the Everyday Genius Institute, where she interviews the world's best on what they do and how they do it. And she also shares those strategies with others. She's written 6 books and all about strategies of genius, and her most recent one was with the Kid Whisperer, Heather, and she co-authored a book on parenting with strategies of genius. So welcome today, Taryn. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Well, let's get right to it. In your experience, Taryn, of working women, what would you say is their greatest challenge?
I think it's for women with kids in particular, it's what everyone talks about. How do you do it all? How do you do a great job at work and put your focus there? How do you come home and feel like you gave everything to your kids and then not feel guilty along the way that you didn't do enough for work or you didn't do enough at home? So I think the greatest challenge is guilt, battling the guilt that you didn't do enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate, or anyone can relate. And so how do you overcome that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm not awesome. I'm not doing 100% at anything. And I'm feeling like I'm just barely getting by at all of it. And having run my own company for a long time, I feel like that every day in my company, which is I've got to be marketing, I've got to be sales, I've got to be product development, I've got to be design, and you never feel like you get to do anything particularly well because you're trying to do all of it just well enough to get to the next thing. And I think you add that feeling with work on top of kids that require a lot. And you really wake up every day feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm only 50% or 70% at anything, and I'm not 100% at anything. And it's a hard frame of mind to get over because, of course, we all want to feel like we're delivering at 100% and we're hitting on all cylinders, and we wake up and we feel amazing about what we've done because it was our 100% on that one thing. And I'm just not sure that I'm not sure that's possible. I think it's a question of reframing it, which is maybe being 50 or 70% at all those things is what's awesome. And when you're there, you're there. And when you're at work, you're at work. And when you're at home, you're at home. And you gave your focus in those moments, and it was the best you could do in that time.
Yeah.
What do you notice with parents? What do you think their greatest challenge is?
I can totally relate to the guilt, definitely. And just that there's not enough to go around. There's just not enough to go around. Some days,
right.
other days I get it, and I'm like, I feel awesome. But yeah, particularly when life gets really busy or there's projects at work, those are the moments that I really slip into not feeling like there's enough time in the day.
And I think it's a question of how do we get out of the guilt, and it's a question of reframing it. And we're such an achievement-driven culture, us Western women in particular.
Yeah.
And so it's like, did we achieve this? Did we do this great job at work? Did our kids get this amount of time, experience, stimulation, food, whatever, extracurricular? And it's all achievement-based. And I think if we can just reframe the goal for ourselves, which is, did I give as much love as I could in this moment? Did I give as much love and care as I could at work? Did I give as much love and care to my child in this moment? And if you gave as much love as you could in the moment, doesn't that just feel better and less stressful than did I achieve this that I wanted to?
Sure. So what you're saying is to reframe from the achievement into the goal setting of love, giving and providing love. That's the goal.
And isn't that all we really want? I mean, isn't that what we want to give and what we want to receive? And at the end of your life, when you look back, you're not going to remember the reports. You're not going to remember that your kid had a soccer trophy or not. You're just not going to remember that. You're going to remember those moments of connection and those moments of love. So what if we just made that the goal?
Yeah.
And the goal is, I'm going to show up and I've got 3 hours with my kid, and how much can I love them right now? And drop all of the, did we get enough done? Did enough happen in this 3 hours? Did they get enough stimulation, enough this, enough that? And did I love them enough in this 3 hours? Did I love them as much as I could?
Yeah.
That's so much more relaxing.
Yeah, I actually feel like taking a deep breath right now and relaxing.
Yeah.
I will.
I know, And I think about that a lot with kids. And as you mentioned, I did this really beautiful project with Heather Criswell, who's a kid whisperer. And I never in a million years thought I would do an Everyday Genius project with parenting or with someone with kids, because I thought, how could you find someone that really embodied a principle that would apply to humanity and not just a segment of humanity? And then life showed me Heather, And I can honestly say that she embodies the spirit of love with kids more than anyone I've ever met. And it's really a universal message. And I learned that from her. It's not, what did we get done? How great were we in this moment? It was, did we share enough love together? And it was such a beautiful reframe for me, especially coming from such an achievement-driven background as I have.
Yeah.
Especially thinking about, and I put all the pressure on myself, but, growing up, it was, did I get into the right school? Did I get the right job? Did I get the right amount of money? And so much of these things I set for myself. And I thought, what if I just reframe it all and measure it by how much do they love? And then measure I'm not a parent, but I'm an auntie to a lot of kids and nieces and nephews, 7 of them. And rather than worry about, did we do all of this, is the goal is, how do I show them what love looks like and feels like and acts like? And rather than worry about my niece or my nephews or these kids getting into any kind of school or any kind of achievement, it's what if I just teach them how to be the most loving they can be?
Yeah.
And all the pressure's off. And it's a really beautiful way to look at it.
And I'm pretty sure, speaking of children rather than us as parents, but although it translates for both, then our kids are going to be relaxed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then they'll be in the present right there as well. So it's good for them and it's good for us.
And I really learned this. I spent the last 2.5 years traveling. I call it my walkabout, but I really learned the art of receiving, and not just receiving things, but receiving what the next thing life has for you. And again, having been someone that was so focused on achieving.
Yeah.
And what I realized is actually life has everything coming to me. It's already planned out. It's all coming to me. And the less I worry about what's coming and I just accept the next thing in line for me to do, it's such a more relaxing way to go through life. And the same is true for our kids. Everything is destined to come to them because they've got a soul plan of their own. And what if we just relax about all of it, spend our time loving each other, and just trust that the next thing that needs to show up is going to show up, and we just need to recognize it when we see it and then go do that. And it's just a way more relaxing way to go through life rather than push and drive and make it happen. It's all going to come to you, just come to you and just show up and do the next logical thing that life has you to do.
I think that's what all the great spiritual teachers say, Taryn. You're with them.
It took me a long time to get that. And I'm turning 41 in a couple weeks, and it took me 40 years to get that. Yeah. And now that I've got it, it really is a much more relaxing way to go through life. Of course, the challenge is making the shift from thinking, oh my God, I'm going to starve if I don't go out and make it happen, which is, of course, that primal survival fear that kicks in.
Yeah.
What makes us so intense about getting all this stuff done. It's making the shift from that to, you know what, I'm just going to trust that life is going to bring me everything I need. I just need to pay attention to when it shows up. So the shift is hard.
So how did you shift? Like what was that? What was that learning for you?
Yeah, I'd love to say it was a big light bulb moment. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was a moment where after Heather and I wrote that book, it was 5 years of launching my company, 5 years of the most intense work I've ever done, the biggest creative output probably ever. And I literally could not get off my couch. And I say that like you think I'm exaggerating. I would literally wake up in the morning, get a cup of coffee, sit on the couch, lay down, and I would not leave my couch until 5 o'clock. I was there all day. And this went on for a month, and I was like, I don't have it in me. I can't work anymore. I need a break. And so I sold everything I owned and I went traveling, and I learned the hard way that even though I didn't have the money to do it, even though I had no idea where the next housing was going to come from, the next money was going to come from, the next anything was going to come from, I just had to trust that life was going to bring it to me. And it brought me the most miraculous of things without expecting it. Free trips to Europe twice, free trips to Mexico, free trip to Tahiti. I wish I was making this up. It was just all the stuff that just came to me, people inviting me to go do things. And it all worked out. And for 2.5 years, I lived this really luxurious life with, I kid you not, at moments, not enough money for a cup of coffee. And
wow.
So, really funny contrast where I was living in all this luxury, but I didn't have enough money to afford a cup of coffee. And yet I looked down on the street and there was $10 at one point. And I was like, oh, I guess I do have money for coffee. There it is. So it was a gradual process of living in this intense fear of survival and finally realizing after 2.5 years, like enough data points of, I'm going to be looked after. I can just relax. I can just trust it to come. And it does. And that's the thing, is it does. And again, for me, it wasn't the light bulb. It was 2.5 years of really having to see it again and again and again and again that I was looked after. So now I'm relaxed about it. Not that there's not moments of like, oh shit, like what's next? But it's not the intense fear. And I think as a wise woman told me, she says, I've never seen anyone go through an intense spiritual transformation where they learn how to receive without there being intense financial pressure. And in my case, there was. I really didn't have the money to travel, and yet life gave it to me. Everything I needed, life gave to me. And in luxurious ways. It wasn't like I was living on the streets. I mean, it was these luxury houses and food and all kinds of stuff. So, it was this funny contrast. And I think that we are all able to receive like that once we let go of the panic and the survival where we're pushing against life rather than letting life flow to us.
Beautiful. Because I think a lot of women can relate to that. That panic of making the mortgage if your husband's sick or unemployed, or if you're a single woman, a single mother, as I have been as well. And it's up to you. The buck stops with you. You have to be both the masculine and the feminine, and it can be really difficult to drop into the feminine and receive, because you've got to go out and work and bring home the bacon and some vegetables as well. Be the nurturer as well when you get home to the kids. And I think we could all have a lesson in receiving, actually, and knowing that it's going to work out and trusting in that.
It's scary. It's really scary. I would love to say that it was all easy. There was moments of my body would be shaking. I was in such terror, like, oh my God, am I going to have enough money to like make it to where I need to go next? And it all worked out, but there was moments of shaking with terror that it wouldn't. And it was like almost like that fear had to leave every cell of my body, and it literally shook out. So yeah, and that was just me on a walkabout. If you've got 2 or 3 kids and you're the single mom and you've got a mortgage, I mean, all of that adds to it. So it's not like every mom needs to just be like, I'm going to go on my walkabout.
And it's not that either, but it is about managing in the moment, in more effective ways. That's what it's really about.
Yeah, and I think in some ways it's living a bit of a simpler life. And I have a lot of siblings. I'm one of 6, and I see 2 of my sisters with kids, and they're really stressed out. And it's not so much a financial stress, but it's a stress of making sure their kids are doing it all. They're engaged enough. They're in the soccer practice. They're in the private schools. They're eating really organic, healthy food. All the things that we want for our kids naturally.
Yep.
And yet there is such an intense pressure they place on themselves to deliver all of that to the kids, that it's almost like they're so unhappy in trying to meet all of their kids' needs that they've lost themselves along the way. And I look at that and I think, gosh, I get it. Because, of course, as a mother, you want that for your child. And yet when you lose yourself along the way, are you really serving them? Because now what you're modeling is I need to let go of myself for my kid and put all this pressure on myself so that they have fun. And that's not necessarily the modeling I think if we were to choose we would want. So how do you find that balance of just like, maybe we're going to do less and we're going to enjoy it and relax a bit more. So it's not so programmed. It's not so intense. There's not so much pressure. And yet you got to let go of the keeping up with the Joneses feeling a little bit. I mean, I just noticed that with my siblings and with people, that have kids. And so that's just what I noticed. What do you notice?
Look, a lot of the same. I mean, you buy a house in a suburb and your kids go to the school in that suburb, and you have to keep up with it all. It's I'm sure a lot of people who are alive, and it's not only mothers or, a lot of people who are alive, I'm sure, feel like we're just in the daily grind. And, that's one of the reasons for interviewing all of these amazing, fascinating people. Like, how do we get out of the daily grind and reclaim our own sense of self and find that, as I've called it, our mojo? And some of it is, of course, about feeling better in our bodies, doing yoga and feeling, expanded and, all of that. But it's not just that. It's reclaiming that inner fire, that sense of freedom that a lot of us had and don't currently feel.
I get it. I totally get it. And I think it's really, how do you free yourself from the guilt and the judgment that you're not doing what everybody thinks you should be doing? And it's like, how do you carve out the life that you want, regardless of what society has an expectation of what it looks like, and whether that's with kids or work or your own life or your relationships, partnerships. And I think that's what I notice a lot of women really trying to do is say, hey, society might want that, but I'm going to do what works for me. And it takes a lot of courage to step outside the box a bit on it. Because there's a lot of judgment. I mean, there's no more judgmental group of people than mothers with other mothers. And Heather and I talk a lot about this because it's really intense. You're on the playground and you just feel all this judgment towards you because your kid's acting a certain way, or you're not doing enough, or you fed them a Coke and they think they should all be, no sugar. I mean, whatever it is, right? I mean, there's just so much judgment. And it's like, how can we as parents support each other and say, hey, if that's working for you, knock yourself out. This is what's working for me. This is what I'm doing. And everyone just realizes that it's different strokes and we can support each other, and it can be different.
Yeah. And judgment, I think, is a really huge factor. I remember years ago when my youngest son was a baby, and he was a real crying kind of a baby. He was a nightmare, actually. And I couldn't go down to the shops for more than 20 minutes, and I had to have him in my arms, and it was so hard. And I remember I was in a lift at Maya, and I looked over to this woman who had a child in her pram with a laptop on his knee. And I looked over, out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, that is pure genius. Because this was years ago when like we didn't have an iPad then. I mean, of course we have one now, mainly because of this woman, actually. And she kind of turned to me, and I could tell she thought I was judging her, where in actual fact I was like, this is pure genius. Right. And I said to her, oh, I'm so sorry that I'm observing you the way I'm, looking at you. And I said, but does your child sit in the pram quite happily when he's watching that? And I could just see her relax, that I wasn't like, I was looking out of the corner of my eye, but I was seeing a parenting skill that I wanted, not the opposite.
Right.
And it did, from that moment, really make me think, we've got so many great gifts that we can share with each other as to what makes it a bit easier, what makes life that little bit easier. And, to fess up that we're not always judging people. Sometimes we're looking, but because we're so used to being judged or feeling judged, we think everybody is judging us, rather than people are admiring us at times for what we're actually doing.
Well, and the truth is we do a really great job of judging ourselves, don't we? I'm not doing enough.
I think that's actually probably what the problem is. And especially these days, there's a lot of talk about not having your children on iPads and technology and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm an advocate for that as well. I think it needs to be monitored. But you know what? When I need to get stuff done, I put my son on the iPad and I know I've got an hour.
And that's great, because you need to get your stuff done too.
Exactly.
And he's being entertained. I mean, and again, it's like, that's not for everybody, but that's working for you. So awesome. Do more of it.
That's right. Yep. That's right. And, years ago I ran a magazine, and this is when everything changed for me, actually. It was an online magazine for teenage girls. And I realized that technology is actually a wonderful thing. I'd always seen it as, a means to an end. And it was during that period of time when we were doing so much stuff online that I realized, technology, especially for our girls, is so important, because we don't want them to be left behind in the future and affect their future prospects of getting jobs in technological kinds of fields. And so I encourage my daughter to do lots of Googling and research and writing the stories on the computer as well. So anyway, that's quite aside from what we were talking about. But, I have embraced technology with the kids a lot more than what I thought I would have, when I had that ideal mother figure in my mind.
Oh, that you're going to do crafts and you're going to go to the park every day. Yeah, of course, and it's just, it's fun for a hot minute, but to do that day in, day out, and you don't get to do anything that you want to do, it's not. So.
Yeah. And it's about, I think as well, having a bit of everything, embracing it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Taryn, tell us what you're working on at the moment. What's going on in your world?
Well, I am doing a few things. I've had this idea for quite a long time for a true women's empowerment. I don't even want to call it a workshop, but a series. And I'm working on bringing that together. It's called Come Alive. And the idea to really help all of us reclaim our power and what that looks like. And it's not, I think, what people think it is. And I really got clear on what empowerment looks like after my walkabout and after a really intense spiritual journey of my own. So that's been something I've been working on that's going to launch later this year. So that's been fun. And I do executive coaching and speaking and consulting also. So I'm working on a big consulting project for someone. And of course I still have Everyday Genius that in a way I was smart and I set a lot of that up to run itself, but it still takes some nurturing and feeding. So I do that. So I'm really excited. Heather and I came out with that book, How to Raise a Happy Child and Be Happy Too. And it was really written at a time when both of us had the time to write it. And in my whole life, that is my proudest work. And it was also a few years ago, but it feels like it's just now as a book really socially more relevant. I wouldn't say more relevant. It's almost like it was such a high spiritual vibration that Earth needed to catch up to it. And I feel like everyone's kind of caught up spiritually to that book. And so the book is really taking off. There's a lot happening with it, which is exciting. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. For all of our viewers, Heather Griswold is also being interviewed on a separate evening, and there'll be links to the book. I'm dying to know though, and I'm sure our viewers are as well. So Come Alive, empowerment, and it's not what we think it is. Just tell me a little bit more.
Well, I've been on the spiritual journey for a long time, and I don't think a lot of the spiritual teachings out there are really deeply empowering. And what I realized in my own journey is that, in a way, it sounds funny. It's like you've got to be everything for yourself. And if you're waiting for life to show up and be that for you, you're waiting a real long time. But what does that really mean? What is that empowerment? That you say to yourself all of the things that you like was saying to your partner, saying to you, you get your love that you wish everyone else was giving to you, that you see your own greatness in the way that you wish everyone would see it for you. It's like you have got to be a self-contained unit to do all of those things for yourself, because all the other characters in your play aren't meant to do that for you. Only you can give you the love. Only you can give you encouragement. Only you can see your own greatness. And when you really internalize and you own it, it is so deeply empowering, because you're no longer waiting for life to give you something to make you happy. And I said, everything is simple and easy. It's simple. It's not necessarily easy. It took me a long time to really learn to be able to love myself. It's like, you know what I do? I love myself. I feel really good about myself. I feel good about my body. And I say a long time, I'm talking years, like years of working at it to undo all that conditioning that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't lovable for whatever reason. So again, it's simple, but it wasn't easy for me. But it's just a deeply empowering place that I've gotten to, that I think for women to really be what we're meant to be on this planet, which is, I mean, certainly equal, but I don't even mean equal, where there's such gifts that women have. When I look at the amazing people on the planet, I mean, truly amazing souls, they're all women. Just this intuitive connection, this genius that women have that is so uncelebrated compared to the genius that a lot of men carry. And I just see this genius is so delicious and yummy. And yet, until we can claim that for ourselves, honor our own greatness, love ourselves, see what our unique gifts are, until we can do that for ourselves, that is what is going to launch us and society and humanity forward in a greater way than we can ever imagine. But we've got to reclaim it for ourselves and not wait for anyone, men, husbands, partners, jobs, kids, anything to do it for us. We've got to be our own sustaining force of love for ourselves. So that's the message that's really about Come Alive. We all have a gift to share. And how do you find that gift inside and bring it to the world in a beautiful way?
Beautiful. Oh gosh, I look forward to your course coming out.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm not quite sure what the date is, but it's something very much in progress. And there's a few of us that have been working on it, so I'm excited. It's a team effort, a true feminine team effort. But it was a vision I got about 2 years ago to do it and really go city to city and almost like lighting up these cities, because just the force of when you light women up, it's just like the whole world lights up. It's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it feels good. So I'm excited.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
And
I
I think
thank you so much for talking to us today, Taryn. It's just been my absolute pleasure to get to know you better and to hear all of the wisdom that's inside of you and is just going to keep coming out. And I look forward to actually it coming out in,
thanks.
in
I'll
a
keep you
few months'
posted.
time.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed chatting. So hopefully we can do it again. Thank you.
Love to. Bye, Taryn.
Bye.